welcome. In today's video we are finishing our little series all about sleeves, and we're going to finish that with a very simple sleeve, which is the cap sleeve, an absolute classic. This is where the sleeve just extends just over the shoulder and just creates a little bit of width across the top of your shoulders at that point, as you can see in the image next to me. You're going to need your standard pattern drafting tools, and you're also going to need your own bespoke sleeve. If you've not got your own bespoke sleeve, you can refer back to video 69, where I talk you through all about how to measure your arm and how to draft out your perfect sleeve block. What you're going to see on the screen above is going to be my sleeve block. It's going to look different to yours, and that's totally fine because everybody's body is different. Before we get started today, I should mention that I am wearing today Mind the Maker fabric. The cardigan is the True Bias Marlowe sweater. That's the pattern, and we'll tag it below the video. And then I'm wearing the Megan Nielsen Rowan top underneath, also again in Mind the Maker fabric. We'll tag those below the video for you. Okay, so working with our pattern, our standard sleeve block, the very first thing we're going to do is just to lower the sleeve head by 2 centimeters. So grab your pattern drafting ruler and just mark a point up at the top that is 2 centimeters offset from the top of the sleeve head. What we then want to do is to find a soft curve from this point that then goes in and matches up with that notch point there. So a nice curve arching all the way around to the 2 notches. I'm just tracing that out by pencil, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to draw over it in my nice orange pen. Obviously at home you should be using a nice sharp pencil to do this whole process because it's going to give you a really nice neat finish. We're simply using fat marker pens so you can see it at home. Grab a pair of scissors and then just cut that volume out. Next, keeping our ruler parallel with the wrist line down at the bottom, down here, I just want you to draw a line up to the front notch. And do the same with the back. Now at this point, we've kind of got all the basics of what we need to do done on the sleeve head, but what we now need to do is decide the length of how long you want the sleeve cap to be from your inset sleeve line. So you decide what you want to do, and we're going to draw in that curve shape together. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to draw a 7 centimeter cap sleeve, so quite a small one. And when it hits the side seam, I'm going to just mark a point that is 3 centimeters along the side seam of both edges. Now fundamentally what we want to do is to draw a curve that then just sort of comes in and then touches the side seam like that. So it's probably worth just using a little pencil just to mark out a curve that you think is good, dotting on a few points sort of around the curve of that sleeve where you feel like it's going to start to look really nice. Just drawing your sleeve now. This is just an approximate shape anyway, so it's all right for it to be a little bit rough. At this point, we're going to grab our calculator and we're just going to measure the distance between one notch line and the other notch line. Tap that into your calculator and divide that by 4. We're then going to divide this segment into 4. So using that offset distance that you've just calculated, mark this area into 4 equal segments. Now I just find it easier to do this when I've got the whole sleeve because I've got the nice wrist line down here, so I can make sure that everything is sitting really nice and perpendicular as we draft in these big long lines. All we're going to do now is cut off the top of our cap sleeve now. Brilliant. Okay, so now we don't need this bit of the sleeve at all, so you can just take that away and pop that in the recycling bin. Next, we're just going to cut up the 3 central lines, leaving a pivot point at the sleeve head. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to draw a straight line on a new sheet of paper. This is going to act as a guide for us. So once you've drawn that nice line, all we want to do is to move the cap sleeve so that basically it's sitting nice and straight along this line as best we can really. What we want is for the bottom of the side of the sleeve, I should say, to be hitting that point beautifully. And then the rest of it should just open up nice and evenly. So we've got these 3 little gaps that have opened up nicely. And then go and grab your tracing paper and we'll trace over that, adding our seam allowances. So the first thing we're going to do is actually just draw straight over this bottom line here, because we want a straight bottom to our sleeve. I'm not going to add a seam allowance at this point because we're just looking at the pattern drafting techniques. Obviously you could add a little hem if you wanted to and turn that up a couple of times, or you could use bias binding to finish it off really nicely too. Add your seam allowance to both of your side seams. We need to redraw in our sleeve head and we're just going to soften that curve up at the top now. So mark a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance all the way around the top of the sleeve head. Now you can see it's kind of a little bit bumpy here at the top. So now I've drafted out the approximate shape. I'm just going to use my ruler just to create a nice soft curve to kind of compensate a little bit for that. Add in your notches. Grain line, cap sleeve, cut 2. Excellent. So now that we've drafted out that pattern piece, we're going to cut it out too. You're going to need to attach your sleeve to a bodice of some kind. So I'm imagining if you're at home, you've got a design in mind that you're attaching the sleeve to. As you draft out your bodice, don't forget to add your seam allowance to your arm side so that you can attach your sleeve onto your bodice. If you're not sure how to do this, you can refer to video 70 where I talk you through how to do that step by step. But for now, let's cut out our pattern pieces out of our tracing paper and our calico, and then off we go. Okay, so we've got our cap sleeve here, pattern piece in front of us. And I've just annotated the pattern pieces to show that we've got the right side on one, and then if you flip the other side over, that's the right side of that one. So we're just going to show you how to sew up one of the sleeves nice and quickly. First thing we're going to do is to fold one side over the other with the right sides together. Just pin that in place and then sew using a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. Next, just press that seam allowance open so it's nice and smooth. Let's now fit this sleeve into our bodice, and this will be the bodice of your choice. Here I'm going to use one that I've just prepared earlier. If you're not sure how to sew a sleeve into a sleeve head, you can refer back to the techniques that I explained really carefully in video 70, and that talks you through step by step how to do this whole process. So in front of me here I've got my bodice and I'm going to sew my cap sleeve onto that bodice. Now the bodice is, as I said right at the very beginning, the bodice is one that I've drafted out previously, so it's quite simple, but it's got a front opening, and all I've done is I've added in a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the arm side. So very simply, all we're going to do now is just attach our sleeve onto our sleeve front. We've got the underarm seam to line up here. I can see I've got one single notch on this side, so that's going to tie in with the single notch on the garment at this point here. So let's just line up our underarm side seams with right sides together to start off with. Then just flip the garment inside out so you've still got the right sides of the top matching up, and then just line up the double notch on the back of the sleeve and the single notch on the front of the sleeve, and pin those in place. Okay, so that's fitted really nicely. We've pinned it all the way around the circumference. So at this point, as we said in video 70, you could hand stitch it in place if you feel like it's got a lot of ease that needs to be eased into place, or you can baste it in place using a sewing machine, or you can obviously just sew it straight away if you want to. What we're trying to achieve is no puckers or gathers on the actual sleeve piece as we sew. So there we have it. Our little sleeve is looking really cute up there, isn't it? Obviously we've not hemmed it because we're just doing pattern drafting experience. The only other thing that I would recommend is that on the inside, now that you've checked all of that for tucks or gathers, I'd recommend just trimming down the seam allowance or clipping in place to ease the tension before you finish it in whichever way you choose to. Once you've done one, let's go and sew in the second one. And there we have it, 2 little cap sleeves all completed. Great, we're going to take a look at what that looks like now. And so here we have it, a really cute little cap sleeve detail to our top. You can just see how that broadens out the shoulders and just creates a little bit of interest and definition to the garment. If you did this in a contrasting colour as well, you could really play about with colours and shapes just to make this very simple pattern drafting technique into something which looks a little bit more elevated. So there we have it, our cap sleeve detail all completely done. I hope you've really enjoyed that and you found it really fun and interesting today. I cannot wait to see what you choose to do at home with this technique. Please do create an account on our Minerva website where you can upload photos of whatever you've been making and share with our maker community. And if you've got any comments, please feel free to leave them below the video. We always love to hear from you. So thanks for joining me today. I've been Izzy at Minerva. I will see you next week.